If your retirement plan is built on a big traditional 401k balance, listen closely. Most people think the dream is to retire with a huge 401k or IRA. But here is the twist that many do not see coming. I have watched Morningstar publish several studies showing that if you enter retirement with $1 to $3 million in traditional tax deferred accounts, you may pay more in lifetime taxes than you did while you were working. Not because you did anything wrong. I have always preferred simple systems and long time horizons. I will walk you through the mechanics, the example, and the window that gives you back control. And certainly not because you did not save enough, but rather because the U.S. tax system is designed to punish those who have large traditional account balances. And I know immediately some people might be thinking most people do not have $1 million invested. Is not it only a small minority of people? Well, if we look at the general population, yes, but for disciplined and consistent savers it happens. Research proves that Fidelity's Millionaire Outlook, nearly 8 in 10 millionaires built their wealth through regular employer income and steady investing. This is literally the 401k era path. These are the exact accounts we're talking about today. Ramsey Solution National Study of Millionaires found 93% of millionaires built their wealth in ordinary jobs: teachers, engineers, managers, healthcare, government trades, and military. They did not have a big windfall. They did not inherit the money. They simply saved and invested over a long period of time. WealthX Global Wealth Census, between 76 and 80% of us millionaires built wealth through employment, discipline, saving, and investing, not entrepreneurship or inheritance. The best time to plan is when you still have options. Options shrink when you cross into mandatory withdrawal years. So while 1 to 3 million may sound like a lot, the data is clear. Millions of everyday Americans will retire with 7-figure balances, and most of it will be inside tax-deferred accounts, which means they are the exact group that Morningstar is warning about today. I am going to walk you through exactly how it happens, who is most at risk, and how you can fix it before RMDs show up like an unexpected tax bomb. I have watched Morningstar has been sounding the alarm on this for years. The whole Morningstar research team keeps showing the same thing: retirees with $1 to $3 million in tax deferred accounts often pay the highest lifetime tax bills of any group of savers. It is not the ultra-wealthy. It is not the high-income executives. It is the consistent and disciplined savers who unintentionally build this tax problem. Why? Because once you hit your early 70s, the IRS takes control of your withdrawal schedule. Up until that point, you can take as much or as little as you want from your 401k or your IRA. But once you reach RMD age, currently 73, and eventually increasing to 75, that freedom disappears. The goal is not a bigger number on a statement. The goal is control. RMDs, or required minimum distributions, are mandatory withdrawals. The IRS forces you to take out of your traditional retirement accounts every single year, whether you need the money or not. It is the government's way of saying, hey, you've delayed paying taxes for decades. Now it is time for us to start taking a share, and that percentage you must withdraw goes up every single year. The reason the window years are valuable is that your paycheck is gone and RMDs have not begun. That gap is a rare chance to act on your own terms. I am not asking you to abandon traditional accounts. I am asking you to avoid having only traditional accounts. Suddenly, even if you are frugal, even if you have other income sources, even if you do not want to take this money out, you are required to take out $10,000 or tens of thousands of dollars. And it all gets taxed as ordinary income. You no longer get to decide how much you withdraw. Required minimum distributions make that decision for you. And this is where tax problems start. Compounding works best when you remove unnecessary friction. And why Morningstar keeps warning us about it, let me give you a real Morningstar-style example. Meet a couple entering retirement with $1.5 million in a traditional IRA. They're 65. They're modest spenders, and they plan to withdraw about 4% a year, roughly $60,000. They're thinking, perfect. We will take what we need, keep our taxes low. and let the rest just stay invested and keep growing. Here is the problem. Even when they're withdrawing $60,000 a year, the portfolio keeps growing. And in many real Morningstar models, it grows to $1.8 or even $2 million or more by the age of 73. That means their very first RMD could easily be $75,000, $80,000, or even $90,000. Then add in Social Security on top, maybe another $50,000 combined, and suddenly they're pushed into higher tax brackets. 85% of their Social Security becomes taxable. They trigger IRMA Medic, and their marginal tax rate can spike to 27.75% or even 46.25% because of the tax tornado. Again, I have watched Morningstar keeps warning of these middle affluent retirees, those with balances in the $1 to $3 million range. They're hit hardest with lifetime taxes, not because they're wealthy, not because they're overspending, but because they're forced to recognize income they did not need or they did not want. And here is a part that a lot of people miss. RMDs start relatively modest, roughly 4%, but they increase every single year. You are only ever drawing the minimum amount. It is very likely that your portfolio is growing at a rate faster than what you are taking out. And that is exactly what Morningstar's modeling shows over and over again. These balances grow well into your 70s, in your 80s, in your 90s. The RMDs get larger and larger. The tax income problem compounds every single year. What starts as a manageable RMD turns into in investing, behavior matters as much as math. Growing and accelerating tax problem, and it is often one that disciplined savers did not see coming until it is too late. Let's simplify this, because the tax torpedo is one of the most misunderstood parts of retirement planning. When you take money out of a traditional 401k or traditional IRA, that money is taxable. That is the obvious part. But here is the twist. Those withdrawals can also make more of your Social Security become taxable. So one extra dollar you take out doesn't just count as $1 of income. It can drag up to 85 cents of your Social Security into your taxable income at the same time. And this is where the tax tornado hits. There are two main danger zones. Morningstar talks about the 27.75% marginal tax zone for people who think they're in the 12% bracket. In this zone, each $1 of additional IRA withdrawal causes up to 50 cents of Social Security to become taxable. The conversion window is not about being clever. It is about using the quiet years before mandatory withdrawals begin. Quiet years are where good planning happens. So you are being taxed on $1.50 of income for every dollar you withdraw. Here is what it looks like. If your federal bracket is 12%, then you have to add in state tax or other phase-in effects, and the real marginal tax rate becomes about 27.75%. Yes, even though your bracket says 12%. Then we have the 46.25% marginal tax zone for people who think they're in the 22% bracket. Here is the bigger spike in this zone. Each $1 of IRA withdrawal or 401k withdrawal causes 85 cents of Social Security to be taxed. So you are taxed on $1.85 for every dollar you take out. Here is what it looks like for the 22% bracket. Then you have to add in state tax, IRMA cliffs, credit phase-outs, and effectively you are at a marginal tax rate of about 46.25%. It is not because the bracket itself is high. It is that two taxes hit the same dollar at once. And this hit is the tax tornado. This is why so many retirees say, why am I paying more in taxes now than when I had a paycheck? It is because the way Social Security is taxed. And then you have your RMD, and this all makes for a perfect storm of hidden taxes. Most retirees do not intentionally end up in this situation. It is just that they were disciplined savers, and they saved into a tax-deferred account. This is the group Morningstar calls middle affluent. Your traditional IRA or traditional 401k continues to grow, and you are only taking out the minimum. Your tax torpedo can grow right along with it. Now that we've walked through what the tax tornado is and why it happens, let's also talk about who it actually hits, because this part surprises a lot of people. Most retirees assume that the tax torpedo is a wealthy retirement problem. The tax tornado is a math problem, not a moral problem. When you understand the math, you stop blaming yourself and you start adjusting the plan. But that is not the case. In fact, it is the wealthy who tend to skip right over it. So who actually gets hit it is not the couple with $70,000 in a pension, a six-figure RMD $3 million or more, an account with high steady income. Those households already have 85% of their Social Security taxed. So there is no phase in left to trigger their marginal rate is simply wherever they're sitting. They've moved right past the tax tornado. The real impact lands on the disciplined savers. These are the people who have saved consistently for decades, spent modestly built $1 to $2 million mainly inside traditional 401ks and IRAs. They do not have big pensions, and they rely on a mix of Social Security and IRA withdrawals. Their income usually falls in the range of $40,000 to $120,000, which just so happens to be the Social Security taxation phase in zone. This is where the tornado hits with full force. In this range, Social Security moves through 3 stages from being not taxable to up to 50% is taxable to up to 85% is taxable. And every extra dollar pulled from a traditional 401k or IRA pulls more Social Security into taxation. That is why $1 can be taxed as if it is $1.50 or $1.85. It is exactly how someone who believes they're in the 12% bracket ends up paying about 27.75%, or someone who believes they're in the 22% bracket is near 46.25%. Of course, they never see a 27% or a 46% bracket, but they feel it when the tax code hits those same dollars twice. The goal is not a bigger number on a statement. The goal is control. So who doesn't feel the tax tornado? Well, it is really anyone whose income is already high enough that their Social Security is already fully taxed at 85%. This is going to include retirees with large pensions, retirees with very large RMDs, and retirees with high investment income. For them, there is nothing left to phase in. Every additional dollar is simply taxed at their rate. They've skipped right over the tax tornado. So in other words, it is the middle income retiree who has moderate RMDs, maybe $30,000 to $80,000, receives $20,000 to $70,000 in Social Security, doesn't have a large pension to push. Social Security, fully taxable, has income low enough that Social Security is still phasing in and has built their nest egg through consistent saving, not high earnings. In other words, it is teachers, nurses, engineers, federal employees. One reason I prefer simplicity is that complexity hides costs. Here, complexity hides taxes. Small business professionals, mid-level managers, and everyday savers with $1 to $1.5 million in retirement accounts. They're responsible, they did everything right, they were disciplined savers. If you understand the incentives, you can make better decisions, and they're the ones who get hit with the tax tornado. Now, let me be very clear. There is absolutely nothing wrong with saving in a traditional 401k or IRA for many people. It is that tax deduction that makes saving possible in the first place. The problem is not that one rule is unfair. The problem is that multiple rules can overlap in the same year and amplify each other. But decades of retirement research all point to the same conclusion for many workers, especially those whose income grows over time. Adding Roth into the mix early in your career can dramatically improve your long-term tax picture. Here is why the Roth can be so powerful. Lower lifetime taxes. You pay taxes when you are younger, and often in lower tax brackets, and then you avoid paying taxes when your income's higher. When RMDs are at play or when Social Security is there, fewer RMD problems. Roth accounts have no RMDs, which means you are not forced to take money out at any point. The saver who built wealth through steady work deserves a plan that preserves dignity. Dignity in retirement often means predictable after-tax income. The mistake is treating retirement planning like a single account problem. It is a cash flow problem across multiple rules. And when the money comes out, it is not even looked at as ordinary income. It comes out completely tax-free. So it doesn't influence whether you are hit with an IRMA surcharge. It doesn't influence how much of your Social Security is taxed. You get to use this bucket freely. Lower Medicare's premiums, Medicare premiums increase. If your income crosses certain thresholds, Roth withdrawals do not count as taxable income, which keeps your Medicare costs lower. More control over your retirement income. Traditional accounts tell you when and how much you have to withdraw. Roth accounts do not do that. You can decide to pull money out and spend it. You can decide to let it grow. You can use it as a buffer, giving you tax-free income when you do not want a high income year on record. You can save it for future healthcare costs. You can leave it to your heirs. Tax-free Roth. Is flexibility better after tax wealth? I have watched Morningstar's analysis routinely show those that use a Roth early in life and then strategically use Roth conversions later end up with more spendable income in retirement and a lower lifetime total tax bill. The core idea is simple. When you pay, tax matters just as much as how much tax you pay if you pay taxes when you are younger. And in lower tax brackets, you avoid having to pay them later on in retirement, when you have more avenues to worry about when RMDs may push you into higher brackets. When more of your Social Security could become taxable, when it might trigger IRMA, when you have fewer tax planning years left, you are not just saving money, you are avoiding a forced tax bill when you want it the least in your 70s and in your 80s. And this brings us to one of the most important opportunities in all of retirement tax planning: Roth conversion windows. Because even if you spent the vast majority of your career contributing to a traditional 401k, like most Americans, there are still powerful ways to reshape your future tax bill. When the government forces withdrawals, it can also force taxable events you would not choose in a calm year. I have watched Morningstar's research is clear on this. The years between retirement and your early 70s are one of the most valuable tax planning windows you will ever have. Why? Because your income tends to dramatically drop once you step away from the workforce. Your paycheck stops. Maybe you haven't yet decided to claim Social Security. I have always preferred simple systems and long time horizons. And RMDs haven't started yet. This creates a rare period 5. The 10th of May be 12 years, where your tax bracket is the lowest it will ever be again. If your portfolio is still growing, that growth can feel like a win. But inside a traditional account, it can also enlarge the future tax base. And this is where a Roth conversion can be incredibly powerful, rather than waiting for RMDs to kick in at 73 or 75. You take advantage of this period where you are in lower tax brackets and you move money from your traditional in investing. Behavior matters as much as math into a Roth, and you pay taxes at a lower rate. This is exactly how retirees shrink their future. RMDs reduce the tax tornado, avoid IRMA surcharges, and lower their lifetime tax bill by tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. Roth conversions let you take control of your tax destiny rather than letting the tax code do it for you. The key is to understand when a good plan is the one you can follow for decades without regret. When Medicare premiums jump at certain income points, it creates a cliff. A tax-free bucket helps you avoid stepping off that cliff by accident. Windows of opportunity open up earlier. We saw how a tax tornado unfolded for a couple with $1.5 million in a traditional IRA. Let's look at what could have happened. The version Morningstar's research often highlights, because the tax problem we walked through wasn't unavoidable. It was predictable. It was preventable if they had used a bit of Roth earlier, even directing a portion of their contributions into a Roth in lower earning years early in their career. If you understand the incentives, you can make better decisions. They would have reduced the size of the IRA that had later grown into a tax problem. Small Roth contributions early means smaller forced withdrawals later. Or if they had blended pre-tax and Roth savings, they would enter retirement with flexibility instead. A planning mistake is assuming your bracket is the full story. The bracket is a label, but the effective rate is the real outcome. of everything sitting in a single tax bucket with multiple account types. They could choose how much taxable income they want to take every year, rather than having the IRS choose for them if they had done modest Roth conversions in their 60s. Many people save aggressively and then ignore distribution planning. The distribution phase is where the tax code shows its teeth. This is the biggest opportunity. Most retirees miss the years between retirement and RMD age. Before Social Security starts are often the lowest tax years for someone's adult life, even converting $20,000 to $40,000. A year in this window has an impact. It shrinks the future ARA balance. It reduces RMDs. It keeps more Social Security tax-free. It lowers the chance of triggering IRMA and dramatically cuts the lifetime tax bill. Roth conversions between retirement and RMD age often reduce lifetime tax bills by 6 figures. So let's compare what could have happened with our retiree. From the example, the reality today is that their IRA went from $1.5 million to around $2 million at RMD. Age their RMD is now $80,000 to $90,000 or more. 85% of their Social Security becomes taxable. Higher brackets, IRMA may kick in. Lifetime taxes compound year after year. But what if they had followed a bit of a Roth path? The IRA would be much smaller. By the time they're 73, their RMDs could be substantially lower. Maybe they're in the ballpark of $40,000 or $50,000, far less of their Social Security would be pulled into taxation. They would have lower Medicare premiums, and their lifetime tax bill would be dramatically reduced. The difference is not just about taxes, it is also about control. The Roth account allows you to decide when to take out and how much to take out, and control which bracket you end up in. When you have just a traditional, that control is really out of your hands. So if you are in your 30s, your 40s, or your 50s, and you are consistently saving, and you are looking at accounts, traditional accounts that are on track to grow to 1 million or 2 million or 3 million, the research is clear. Do not enter retirement with all of your wealth in traditional accounts. It might feel tax efficient. Now you capture that deduction. Your take-home pay looks higher. It looks great on paper. Compounding works best when you remove unnecessary friction. But later in life, that efficiency could flip and become one of the biggest tax problems you'll ever face. A balanced approach, Roth, traditional, and taxable, gives you options. It gives you the ability to manage when and how you realize income. It allows you to control what bracket you end up in, and ultimately it makes your retirement safer, more flexible, and far more predictable. The goal is not just to save money, it is to save money in the right places. So your future self has choices. You work too hard to build up your accounts, to have the IRS dictate them entirely. The goal is not to retire with a big number, it is to retire with control. And the sooner you start building multiple buckets, the more you are going to have control over your planning and control over your retirement. I do have a video that goes over the ideal mix of accounts you want to go into retirement with, and I will link that here if you want to check it out. I also have a video going over Roth conversions and how to decide if it is the right move for you. I'll link that one as well. Let me know your thoughts. I post new videos every single week. If you got anything at all out of this one, please